They're very hostile. These are very hostile people. These are very angry people. They're very dishonest people. The media is very dishonest. I've been saying it. I say it openly. You have some very honest ones, but I get stories that are so false and so dishonest.
Martin Luther King's bust.
I wish, well, yeah, they said Martin Luther King's bust was taken out of the Oval Office by me.
It's there.
So, see, that's a very serious charge, because they're not saying the bust is taken out. What they're saying is that I'm a racist. That's what they're saying. That's a very serious charge.
It is, and that is the insinuation. Kellyanne Conway is a counselor to the President of the United States. She joins us from the briefing room in Washington, D.C. Kelly, what a week you've had.
Yes, breakneck pace. You know, we're working for high energy, high impact Donald Trump, and everything that he has done this week is part and parcel of his campaign promises.
Right.
He came to Washington as a non-politician, and so it's very easy for him to deliver on those promises, either through executive orders or negotiations with the Congress. But I'm glad he took a couple of moments last night to address what is going on with some members in the media. It's very difficult for me to split a screen in three, a candidate Trump, President-elect Trump, President Trump, and really see a difference in coverage by some people. And it's unfortunate, because the office of the presidency and whoever its current occupant is at any given time really deserves respect and really deserves an open ear from our media. We're going to be in charge, the administration, for 8 years, we hope, and certainly the media are going to be co-parenting this country for 8 years. We'd like to find a way to do that peaceably and honestly.
Yeah, Steve Bannon had an interview with the New York Times, and this is what he said about the mainstream media. He said the media should be embarrassed and humiliated and keep its mouth shut and just listen for a while. The media here is the opposition party. They don't understand this country. They still do not understand why Donald Trump is the president of the United States. Do you agree?
So what my colleague Steve Bannon is saying there is that Donald Trump understood America in a way many did not, including those who are charged with informing America and educating America about the news, not their opinion. There's an awful lot of opining going on by individuals who call themselves reporters, and you're supposed to talk about the news, not use a snarky comment here, an eye roll there, an adjective that's insulting or congenitally negative toward the president. That's really not the job. The job is to certainly probe and ask the tough questions, but it's beyond that for this man. But look, it also only matters a little bit. Why? Because the entire election was a rejection of elites in the establishment. That's many in the donor class, it's many in the two parties, frankly. It's certainly in the consultant class, which I always say is rife with staph infection. And they've really got nowhere to go now, because Donald Trump proved he can do this with a thinner staff and far less money than typical candidates, including Hillary Clinton. And it certainly is a rejection of some in the media who just never really give him a fair shake. If you look at some of these Twitter feeds, they're a hot mess. They would never pass editorial muster in a newspaper or on a television station.
Kellyanne, there are some reporters in some newspapers that are just flat out calling the president a liar. They would never do that to Barack Obama in a million years.
Even when he did. You can keep your doctor if you'd like. You can keep your insurance plan. We have 57 states in the nation. I mean, there were plenty of occasions to call out former presidents on their falsehoods, and that was done very sparingly and not so strategically. I think it's dangerous to the democracy and for those around the world watching what we do and how this president is covered in his early days. Very dangerous to just throw in adjectives like that, either without evidence but also without context. And I think some of the coverage, in addition to bias, is easy to detect. It's really the incomplete coverage that I'm watching very closely. It's, well, what's missing from the story? What was omitted? What's left on the cutting room floor that actually would inform the public factually about what's happening here? What an amazing week.
Well,
no kidding.
Yeah, I mean, your greatest critic would have to say, my goodness, there's so many major stories and major actions to go over.
And he's just getting started.
Right, and one of which is going to be taking place tomorrow. I understand that President Trump will be calling Vladimir Putin at some point Saturday, and some have suggested that the sanctions from the previous administration are going to be on the table right away. What could you tell us about the agenda?
All of that is under consideration, and certainly in addition to improving relations with different foreign leaders and their nations around the globe. If Vladimir Putin wants to join with the U.S. to have a serious conversation about how to defeat radical Islamic terrorism, that's what we call them around this White House. We don't call them our, quote, determined enemies, like Hillary Clinton did in her convention speech in July in Philadelphia. I didn't even know what that means. We call them radical Islamic terrorists. We call them murderers here. And if another nation that has considerable resources wishes to join together with the United States of America to try to defeat and eradicate radical Islamic terrorism, then we're listening.
But don't
it's
they
very
have to
important
change
to
their
at least have these
behavior?
conversations.
Right, Kellyanne? Don't they have to change their behavior in order to get those sanctions lifted, like not carving up other countries and not destroying, families and towns indiscriminately like they're doing in Syria?
Well, you know what the president has said, it's America first, and that includes in his foreign policy and his national security move. So, yes, he will call out other nations when he believes it's not in the American interest, in the interest of humanity. But that's what these conversations are for, these private conversations with world leaders.
Sure. Kellyanne, I got a question. You were talking about some of the things that Donald Trump is delivering on from the campaign. One of the campaign mottos was "Drain the Swamp." Is that what we're seeing in 4 of the senior career officials at the State Department? They are out. As is customary, everybody always, if you're political, you submit your resignation and the president figures out who he's going to take, and he took theirs. Plus the Border Patrol guy. Is that what we're seeing right here? I mean, did he fire them to drain the swamp? What's going on?
Every administration, every new president, Steve, has to put in people in the place who are going to execute on their vision, who are loyal and who understand, in the case of President Trump, how quickly he's going to move on many of these actions. So he needs his own team around him. We're hopeful that Secretary of State nominee Rex Tillerson will be confirmed quickly and start assembling his team over there at State. Look, John Kerry, the outgoing Secretary of State, what was one of the last things he did in the waning weeks of his tenure? He delivered a 72-minute speech that many see as an anti-Israel screed. And it was very disappointing to President Trump, and it's very disappointing to many Americans of all different faiths and no faith, frankly. And so he needs his own team around him that is going to execute on his American First policies around the globe, and he will do that.
I know you've had a very busy week, Kellyanne. Today is no different. You're going to be marching for the March for Life today in Washington, along with the Vice President. Why are you doing this?
I believe in the sanctity of life. I think that if we can promote and protect life from conception to natural death, it says an awful lot about our country. It's no mistake that in our own Declaration of Independence, life was the very first right that is mentioned, and it was precious then, it remains precious now.
Right.
We have to stop this culture that just looks the other way. Partial birth abortions, sex selection abortions. I can basically go get a pregnancy test and then go get a sex test and schedule my abortion. That's not America's foundation. Taxpayer-funded abortion, and of course, fetal pain abortion, where non-partisan, non-political scientists and physicians have said an unborn baby can feel pain at 20 weeks, basically the halfway point. And we just have to look at this as a culture of life. Many presidents and vice presidents have said they were pro-life. They were. But to have Vice President Mike Pence go out on that mall today in just a few short hours and address those who are coming around from the country and indeed the world to bond together to protect the culture of life is truly remarkable and historic. And I think it's a big day for Vice President Pence. I
Much
hope that Fox
different
will
than
cover
Hillary
it.
Clinton's. Remember, she was for late-term abortions.
Yes, she is. And Donald Trump called her out on that. I mean, it took a Manhattan male billionaire who had been pro-choice for most of his life to deliver the most impassioned defense of life in that October 19th debate in Las Vegas that I've ever heard. I've been working on pro-life messaging for over 2 decades. It took Donald Trump to call out Hillary Clinton and show who's truly extreme on this issue.
Kellyanne, just real quick, on yesterday's implosion of the Mexican-American relationship, how is Donald Trump disappointed in in their mutual decision not to meet? Is that a real step back for him?
No, the relationship was not imploded. This one meeting has been canceled, and that was a mutual cancellation. President Trump mentioned it first, of course, at 9:24 a.m. yesterday morning. It's basically saying that, hey, if he's not going to come here to discuss funding the wall, maybe we shouldn't have the meeting now. We have a $60 billion trade deficit with Mexico, Brian. NAFTA is a great example of trade deals that are inequitable to the United States and her workers and her interests and her allies, and that has to stop. We spend billions of dollars defending the borders of other nations. It's high time we do that here in the United States. We are a sovereign nation. We have people and drugs flowing over that border. The Mexican president wants to have a serious conversation about that and so much more. We'll have it. You know, the #1 income source, the #1 revenue source in Mexico is money coming from the United States going into Mexico by Mexicans who work here, in addition to all the other money that we send to Mexico every single year. Donald Trump ran on this from day one, and America responded very forcefully. And so we're very happy that the first meeting with a foreign leader today is Prime Minister Theresa May. I had occasion to see her last night at the British Embassy. Very excited to have her, receive her here as the first. I think this special relationship between the UK and the US really has a great opportunity for new vibrancy and buoyancy under the leadership of Prime Minister May and President Trump.
Well, you have had a very busy week, and we thank you very much for taking a little time out today before the big March for Life. Kellyanne, thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you so much.
I bet she'll be working.
Yeah. Thanks, Kellyanne.
Work.
All right. All right.